Hello, this is Alice Shapiro, your instructor for Human Body Systems 2, HO152. This is probably going to be part one. I think I'm going to have to break it up into two sections of the recording for the lymphatic system, immunology, and microbiology. Again, we're going to hit the highlights and summarize, and it will be up to you to go back to the non-narrated PowerPoint of this section and spend some more time. Most of the diagrams here are in your book, on your Moodle site, in the packet, more of the same. So please take the time to go to the non-narrated portions. This is going to be a quick overview. Here are some of the major components of the lymphatic system. Go back and read and learn what these are, and as we go through, you'll be understanding more of what their functions are. And this shows you the lymph node distribution throughout the body. The number of lymph nodes in each individual varies to some degree, but the location is pretty consistent. Components of the lymphatic system are lymph, which is the fluid that enters the lymphatic capillaries and is composed of water and some solutes. Lymphocytes, which are cells, we'll talk more about those. Lymphatic vessels, which transport the lymph back to the venous system. Lymph nodes, tonsils, spleen, and the thymus gland, and we will look at each one of these. And the lymphatic system overlaps and is a part of the immune system. Lymphatic capillaries and vessels, they carry fluid in only one direction, from tissues into the circulatory system, back into the venous system. Fluid moves from blood capillaries into the tissue spaces during the process of capillary exchange. About 1% or so is left behind, so it is up to lymphatic vessels to return this to the venous circulation. They are very tiny, closed-end vessels, and fluid moves easily into them, and they are located in most tissues, and they join to form lymphatic vessels. The lymphatic vessels resemble small veins, and they contain one-way valves. The right lymphatic duct is where the lymphatic vessels from right upper limb and the right side of the head, neck, and chest empty, and they empty into the right subclavian vein, and the thoracic duct empties the rest of the lymphatic vessels from the body, and it returns the fluid to the left subclavian vein. Here is what the lymphatic vessels look like, and their location and integration into the venous system, the arteries and veins of the body as well. These are tissue cells, and this lymphatic vessel is going to return the fluid to the venous system. Here is a valve that prevents the backflow of the lymph. Lymphatic organs include all of the tonsils, which we'll look at in a moment. Here they are located: the pharyngeal tonsil, palatine tonsil, and the lingual tonsil. Please take a look at where they are and remember it. Lymph nodes are rounded structures that vary in size. They are primarily in groin, armpit, neck. Lymph passes through these before entering the blood. The lymph moves through, and the immune system is activated if foreign substances are detected, and they have cells in them which remove microbes by phagocytosis. Macrophages are involved, large phagocytic cells. Lymph nodes are also utilized for diagnosing the spread of various types of cancers. Testicular cancer, breast cancer, there is a process now called sentinel lymph node dissection, and skin cancers as well, where the lymph node closest to the cancerous lesion is excised, and if there are cancer cells present there, then we know the cancer has spread, and then the next lymph node in line may be excised until we can determine the extent of the spread of cancer. Here's a diagram of the lymph node showing you its relationship to arteries and veins, and how the lymph vessel itself carries the fluid. That is in your book. Spleen is another one of the lymphatic organs, and you can see where it's located. It's about the size of your clenched fist. It's located in the abdomen, and it does filter blood and acts as a blood reservoir and destroys old red blood cells so that some of the heme and the globulin proteins, amino acids, can be reused. Here is what the spleen looks like. Its location in the abdominal cavity, and then its structure. I'm not going to ask you for the structure really of the spleen, but take a look at where it is located and certainly what its function is. Thymus gland is located in the sternum. It's very important in establishing the immune system. It stops growing at age 1, and by age 60 it begins to decrease in size, and it is where T cells, T lymphocytes, are produced, well, I should say where they mature into T lymphocytes. They actually originate as stem cells in red bone marrow and migrate, and we'll take a look at that a little bit later on as well. Here is the location of the thymus gland. Notice the lymph nodes associated with it. And this, you probably can't read this very well, but there is a diagram just like this in chapter 14 in your book, an overview of the lymphatic system, a nice summary which summarizes the functions for you of the lymphatic system. So please do take a look at this. All right, immunity is defined as the ability to resist damage from foreign substances. There are two major types of immunity, and we will be taking a look at this. The immune system, study of the immune system, is a rapidly growing field. We are learning more and more about it. It seems complex, and it certainly is, but we will try to give an overview. I will try to give an overview and summary. If you can distinguish the major types of the immune system and basically what goes on. Remember always, though, there is overlap. Our entire immune system is working for us anytime we are exposed to a foreign invader. Our immune system doesn't distinguish and say, oh, I'm just innate right now. Oh, I better be adaptive. And you'll see how this makes sense later on. So there is overlap, and in order to study them, it is necessary to break down into a couple of components. Innate immunity is present at birth, hence called innate, and it is more general. It will defend us against any pathogen, and it is also accomplished by physical barriers, chemical mediators, cells, and the inflammatory response are all parts of this, and we'll look at what this means in a moment. Physical barriers such as skin and mucous membranes are our first line of defense. So we have mucus, for example, in our respiratory tract along with ciliated epithelium, and this helps to trap and remove some of the pathogens. Tears, saliva, and urine can also wash away pathogens. Chemical mediators are generalized chemicals that kill microbes and prevent their entry into cells. Lysozyme, found in tears and saliva, kills bacteria. Mucous membranes contain cells that help to prevent the entry of microbes. Also, the mucus is sticky, and the cells lining those membranes are ciliated. Histamine promotes the inflammatory response and causes vasodilation, and interferons are proteins that protect against viral infections by stimulating surrounding cells to produce antiviral proteins. So these are activated as well. Cells involved include white blood cells, which are produced in the red bone marrow and lymphatic tissue. They fight foreign substances generally by phagocytosis. Neutrophils are phagocytic. They are the first to respond but die quickly. Macrophages are monocytes that can migrate and enter tissues, and they can ingest more than neutrophils. They are much larger. They protect lymph in the lymph nodes and blood in the spleen and the liver. And they do have specific names, although I'm not going to ask you to learn those. Basophils are made in red bone marrow, and they can also leave blood and migrate into infected tissue and can also release histamine. Mast cells are also involved, eosinophils, natural killer cells, which are a type of lymphocyte. So all of these are cells that are involved in innate immunity, and we'll see them later on as well. The inflammatory response is a generalized response. It is an important response in the immune system, and it is signaled by the presence of a foreign substance. It's also responsible for many allergic reactions. And here is a summary of the inflammatory response. Please take a look at this again, either here or in the non-narrated portion. This gives you a nice summary. It is also available in your textbook. All right, let's move on to adaptive immunity, and we'll see how far we can get with this. I may have to continue it in the next recording. This defense involves specific recognition to a specific antigen. It is acquired after birth as we become exposed to more and more antigens. It reacts even when innate defenses don't work. If all the innate defenses worked, then our problem is solved. It is slower than innate immunity. It is more specific, not generalized the way innate is, but it does have memory, and it utilizes certain lymphocytes, which are called the B and T cells, which we will take a look at later. Now, two types of adaptive immunity: antibody-mediated and cell-mediated. So we've looked at innate immunity. Now we're looking at adaptive immunity and learning there are two subcategories of adaptive immunity: antibody-mediated and cell-mediated. All right, here are some terms related to adaptive immunity which you need to review. If you still have your medical dictionary, I highly recommend Taber's. Has wonderful definitions and explanation. It is more, as you know, like an encyclopedia. An antigen is a substance that stimulates the immune response. It can be a bacteria, virus, pollen, food, drugs. It can sometimes even be some of your own cells in autoimmune diseases. Self-antigens are molecules in a person's own body that stimulate the immune response. An antibody are proteins that the body produces in response to the antigen. So they help to fight infections, invasion specifically. The lymphocytes develop as stem cells in the red bone marrow. These stem cells give rise to all blood cells, including the lymphocytes. Some become pre-T cells and pre-B cells. The lymphocytes are a type of white blood cell, and they are involved in adaptive immunity. And they become differentiated into very specific cells, such as B cells or T cells. B cells are involved in antibody-mediated immunity. So B cells for the antibody-mediated immunity. And as I said, they originate in stem cells, and they do mature in the red bone marrow. So B for bone marrow, if that helps you remember. They move to lymphatic tissues after they mature, and they lead to the production of antibodies. T cells are involved in cell-mediated immunity primarily, and to some degree they assist antibody-mediated immunity. They mature in the thymus gland, so T is for thymus. They also move to lymphatic tissue after they mature. There are 4 types, which I'm not going to ask you to memorize. Here is an overview of how these lymphocytes develop. Stem cells, which lead to all blood cells, but they do produce pre-B cells, which mature in the red bone marrow, and pre-T cells, which migrate to the thymus, and then both of these enter lymph nodes as they mature. All right, I think I'm going to stop here and next pick up with antigen recognition, and hopefully the next segment of this will complete the immune response overview, and we'll also talk a little bit about the microbiology section. So I will be recording another one, and I'll chat with you later. This is all for now.